Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Speak Up, where we dive into meaningful conversations about personal and professional growth. I'm Ryan, your host, and today we're exploring a topic that can truly change the way you think and live: book reading. Now, I know that sounds simple, but we often underestimate the power of reading. Books aren't just sources of knowledge. They are tools that can reshape your mindset, boost your creativity, and even enhance your communication skills. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how reading can make a profound difference in your life, not just intellectually, but emotionally as well. And I'm not alone in this discussion. Joining me is Priya, someone who is deeply passionate about reading and has experienced firsthand how transformative a regular reading habit can be. Priya, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about something so close to my heart. For me, reading is more than just a hobby. It's a way of life. One of the most amazing things about books is how they can put you into someone else's shoes. For example, reading fiction has helped me see life from so many different perspectives, which has made me more open-minded and empathetic. I remember reading a novel that explored different cultural viewpoints, and it helped me understand issues I had never thought about deeply before. But it's not just about fiction. Reading practical books has also shaped my day-to-day life. I once picked up a book on time management, and it completely revolutionized how I structure my day. That one book helped me find hours I didn't think I had, and now I'm able to balance work and personal time so much better. So, I'm really excited to share how reading has impacted both my personal growth and professional journey.
That's exactly what today's conversation is all about. We're going to discuss the incredible impact that reading can have on different aspects of your life, whether it's helping you become a better communicator, sharpening your decision-making skills, or even opening up new opportunities in your career. We'll also dive into some practical tips on how to make reading a habit, even if you feel like you don't have the time. So, whether you're already an avid reader or just looking to start, we've got something valuable for you today. Now that we've set the stage by discussing the importance of reading in general, let's dive deeper into how it can directly impact different areas of our lives. One of the biggest advantages I've noticed personally is how reading sharpens our communication skills. When you're consistently exposed to well-structured thoughts in books, it naturally improves the way you articulate your own ideas. For instance, after reading books that focus on leadership and communication, I found myself better equipped to express my thoughts clearly, whether in professional settings or personal conversations. Priya, have you experienced anything similar when it comes to the practical benefits of reading?
Absolutely, Ryan. In fact, I'd say one of the most noticeable changes in my own life has been how reading has improved my critical thinking and decision-making skills. There's this common phrase, leaders are readers. And it's true because when you're constantly reading, especially nonfiction or self-development books, you start seeing patterns in how successful people make decisions, overcome challenges, or even approach failure. I remember reading a book by an entrepreneur who shared how he built resilience after a major setback, and it completely shifted how I handled tough situations in my career. I applied the same strategies, and it helped me think more logically and strategically rather than emotionally when challenges arise. It's like each book adds another tool to your toolkit for navigating life.
That's such a great point. Reading gives you access to the thought processes of people who've been through what you're going through or are heading towards where you want to be. It's like having a mentor on your bookshelf. And this is what's so practical about reading. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are countless books filled with solutions and strategies you can immediately apply to your life or work. For example, I was once stuck trying to balance creativity and discipline in my projects. Then, I read a book about habits and how to structure your day to include both free-flowing creativity and disciplined focus. It was a game changer, and I still follow that advice every day.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be just nonfiction. Fiction, too, has its own unique benefits. I think a lot of people dismiss fiction as mere entertainment, but it really does help improve emotional intelligence. When you're reading about characters facing difficult decisions or dealing with complex relationships, It encourages empathy and gives you a broader understanding of human emotions and behaviors. For instance, I recently read a novel that tackled themes of grief and healing, and it really changed the way I approach conversations with friends going through tough times. I found myself being more patient and understanding, which has strengthened my relationships.
That's an excellent point, Priya. Fiction allows us to experience life from so many different perspectives, and it can truly shift how we relate to the people around us. Whether it's through gaining insight into someone else's culture, experiences, or emotions, reading broadens our understanding in ways we wouldn't expect. And this is just one of the reasons we believe book readings can have such a lasting impact on your personal growth.
Exactly, Ryan. And I think another challenge many people face is finding the time to read. With busy schedules, it often feels like there's no room for it. But we'll talk about that a little later because there are definitely ways to make reading a part of your routine, no matter how packed your days are.
Absolutely. Making time for reading is key, and we'll get into those practical tips shortly. But before that, we'll share a few more examples of how specific books have personally impacted us. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this short break. Priya and I discuss some of the broader benefits of reading, from improving communication skills to enhancing emotional intelligence. Now let's get more personal. We want to share some specific examples of books that have truly impacted our lives and how those lessons can be applied practically. One book that really made a difference for me is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It completely changed the way I approach my day-to-day habits. For example, I used to struggle with consistency, whether it was in fitness, work, or even reading itself. After reading Atomic Habits, I learned that small, incremental changes are far more effective than trying to overhaul everything at once. Clear talks about the power of 1% improvements, and it's something I've incorporated into my life ever since. Just focusing on small wins, like reading 10 pages a day instead of a whole chapter, has made a huge difference for me. And it's those small changes that lead to major progress over time. What about you, Priya? Has there been a book that's had a similar impact on your life?
Oh, definitely, Ryan. For me, it was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That book completely transformed the way I think about mindfulness and being present in the moment. Before reading it, I was always in a rush, constantly thinking about the next task, the next goal, or something else in the future. But Tolle's emphasis on focusing on the present really struck a chord with me. One of the key takeaways for me was how much we miss out on when we're not fully present. I started applying that mindset in my daily life. Whether it's at work or spending time with family, I try to be fully present, and it has improved my mental well-being and relationships immensely. For example, before I'd be multitasking constantly, but now if I'm having a conversation with someone, I put my phone down, and I'm fully engaged. It sounds simple, but that kind of shift has had a huge impact on how I connect with others and manage stress. I think anyone who feels overwhelmed by the fast pace of life should read that book. It's a game changer.
I love that example, Priya. It's amazing how reading a book can shift something as fundamental as how you experience the present moment. And that's what makes reading so powerful. Whether it's self-help, business, fiction, or philosophy, each book gives you new tools to approach life differently. Another book I want to mention is Start with Why by Simon Sinek. It helped me clarify my own purpose, both personally and professionally. Before, I used to focus on what I was doing, like the tasks and outcomes. But after reading this book, I started focusing more on why I was doing it. That shift has helped me make more meaningful decisions, especially in my career. I realized that understanding your why gives you a stronger sense of direction. For example, when I was setting up this podcast, I asked myself, why do I want to do this? And the answer was to create a platform where meaningful conversations can inspire growth and learning for others. That gave me a clear purpose and helped shape the content and approach we take with each episode.
That's such a great point, Ryan. I think a lot of people feel stuck at some point in their career or personal life, and books like Start with Why can really help you realign with what truly matters to you. It's like having a mentor in book form, guiding you through those tough decisions or moments when you need clarity. And honestly, That's one of the reasons I'm such a huge advocate for reading. You don't have to navigate these challenges alone. There are so many brilliant minds out there who've shared their knowledge in books, and we just have to tap into it.
Exactly, Priya. And speaking of tapping into that knowledge, one of the biggest challenges people face when it comes to reading is time. I think we've all heard the common complaint, "I don't have time to read." But the truth is, if something is important, we make time for it. So, after the break, we're going to talk about practical ways to fit reading into even the busiest schedules and how you can make it a consistent habit, no matter how packed your day is. Now, let's address something that probably hits home for a lot of you: finding time to read. We all lead busy lives with work, family, and other commitments, and it can feel like there's no room left for reading. But as Priya and I have both experienced, it's not about having time, it's about making time. So, let's dive into some practical ways you can fit reading into your daily routine, no matter how packed your schedule is. One of the things that really worked for me was breaking up my reading into smaller chunks. You don't have to read for hours at a time to get the benefits. I started by reading for just 10 minutes each morning. It became part of my morning routine right after having my coffee, and what's amazing is how quickly those 10 minutes add up. In a month, you could easily finish a book or two, just by sticking to that simple habit. Priya, how do you fit reading into your day?
That's such a great tip, Ryan. For me, I had a similar struggle balancing work, personal life, and reading. But what helped was finding little pockets of time throughout the day. For example, I commute to work, and instead of scrolling through my phone or checking social media, I use that time to read. Even if it's just 15 minutes during my commute, it's time well spent. If I'm too tired to read, I switch to audiobooks, which is another great option for people who feel they don't have the time or energy to sit down with a physical book. Another thing that worked for me was setting small, manageable reading goals. Instead of aiming to finish a whole book in a week, I aim to read a few pages or a chapter each day. This approach makes reading feel less overwhelming and more enjoyable. Plus, it takes the pressure off. You're not racing against the clock. You're just enjoying the process.
I really like that, Priya. The key here is consistency over intensity. You don't need to read for hours at a stretch. You just need to make it a regular habit, whether it's 10 minutes in the morning or during a commute. And as you mentioned, audiobooks are a game changer. If you're someone who drives a lot or exercises regularly, listening to audiobooks while on the go is a great way to absorb information. I've actually read a lot of books this way during my runs or while driving. And for those of you who still feel like finding time is impossible, I'd suggest looking at your screen time on your phone. You might be surprised by how much time you spend on social media or other apps that could be redirected toward reading. Even swapping out 15 to 20 minutes of scrolling for reading could make a huge difference. Priya, do you have any other tips for those struggling to find time?
Yes, I do. Another tip is to always have a book with you. Whether it's a physical book, an ebook on your phone, or an audiobook downloaded, having something accessible at all times makes it easier to squeeze in a few pages whenever you have downtime. For example, if you're waiting for an appointment or in line at a coffee shop, instead of mindlessly scrolling through your phone, you can read a couple of pages. It doesn't seem like much, but those little moments can really add up. The goal is to make reading a part of your lifestyle, not something that feels like a chore or a huge time commitment.
That's so true. I've noticed that once you make reading a habit, it becomes second nature, and you actually start to look forward to it. You begin to crave that time, whether it's 10 minutes or an hour. And like you said, Priya, it doesn't have to be about finding big chunks of time. It's about taking advantage of those small windows in your day. All right, let's recap quickly. We've talked about how to fit reading into a busy schedule by starting small, incorporating audiobooks, setting manageable goals, and making use of pockets of time throughout the day. Now, before we wrap up, we want to leave you with a few more tips to stay consistent with your reading and to really make it a lifelong habit. Now that we've talked about finding time to read, let's dive into the final part of our conversation: how to stay consistent with reading and truly make it a lifelong habit. Consistency is key, just like with any other activity. We've already shared tips on fitting reading into your day, but sticking with it over the long haul requires a bit of strategy, and most importantly, finding joy in the process. One of the ways I stay consistent is by creating a reading environment that I look forward to. It might sound simple, but having a cozy reading spot with minimal distractions really helps me stay focused and enjoy my reading time. I also set small rewards for myself. For example, after I finish a chapter or a certain number of pages, I take a break and enjoy something relaxing, like a cup of tea or a walk. It keeps me motivated without feeling like a burden. What about you, Priya? How do you keep yourself consistent?
I love that idea of creating a cozy reading environment, Ryan. For me, one thing that's really helped is being part of a book club. Having that accountability of discussing books with others pushes me to keep reading, even on days when I might not feel like it. Plus, the social aspect makes it more fun because you're sharing your thoughts and hearing other perspectives. It's not just about finishing the book. It's about engaging with it and with others. Another tip that's worked for me is diversifying what I read. Sometimes, if I'm feeling burnt out from one genre, I'll switch it up. Maybe I'll go from a self-development book to a novel or a biography. Keeping my reading list diverse keeps things interesting and prevents boredom from setting in. If you're reading something you enjoy, it's so much easier to stick with it.
That's a great point, Priya. Diversifying your reading can definitely keep things fresh. I've had moments where I was stuck in a rut with nonfiction, and switching to fiction reignited my interest in reading. Another thing that's helped me stay consistent is tracking my progress. I use apps like Goodreads to set reading goals and track the books I've read. It's not just about reaching a number, but it feels rewarding to see how much I've accomplished over time. And when you see that progress, it motivates you to keep going.
Absolutely. I also think it's important to give yourself grace. If you fall behind or can't read as much as you'd planned, that's okay. Life happens. The key is to not give up entirely. Even if you're only able to read a few pages one day, it's still progress. The goal isn't perfection, but consistency over time. And like we mentioned earlier, audiobooks are a great fallback when life gets too busy. You can listen while you're cooking, driving, or even exercising, which helps you stay consistent without feeling like you're missing out.
Exactly. It's all about building the habit and making it sustainable for the long run. So, to wrap things up, let's quickly go over the strategies we've discussed. First, find small pockets of time throughout your day for reading, whether it's 10 minutes in the morning or during your commute. Second, switch things up by diversifying your reading material, so it stays interesting. Third, consider joining a book club or using a reading app to track your progress and stay motivated. And finally, don't be too hard on yourself. Just keep moving forward, even if it's at your own pace.
That's right, Ryan. The key takeaway is that reading should be enjoyable, not a chore. Make it a part of your life that you look forward to, and you'll find it easier to stick with it. Whether you're reading for personal growth, relaxation, or learning something new, the benefits are endless.
Absolutely. And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode. We hope you found some practical tips to help you integrate reading into your daily life and stay consistent with it. If you have any book recommendations or tips on how you stay consistent, feel free to share them with us on social media or in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, happy reading. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode of Speak Up.